Well, at long last, it's finally here, the first Saturday in September. Yeah, that's it. The rescheduled Kentucky Derby this Saturday and the first Friday in September also promises to be a memorable one with the Kentucky Oaks featuring a showdown of powerhouse fillies Swiss Skydiver and Gamine. I'm Dan Tordjman with America's Best Racing. We're going to spend the next hour or so diving into the Oaks and Derby using the most powerful tool in handicapping, Stats Race Lens, to help us navigate Race Lens and track down some winners for you. Our featured handicappers, TVG's Christina Blacker, and from Equibase, Ellis Starr. Christina, as always, we start with you, of course, based on the West Coast and at TVG. You've gotten a good look at a number of Derby and Oaks contenders up close. Wonder which horse or race, perhaps, you might be looking forward to most, and what your process was for really starting to narrow down some of these super competitive fields all weekend using Racelands.
Yeah, it's going to be such a fantastic weekend of racing. I am really looking forward to it. Of course, Stats Race Lens, the first place I go, looking through those Equibase speed figures, looking through the True Odds pages. I'm really looking forward to a couple of the turf races myself. I know we're going to have a little bit of rain in the next couple of days, but sounds like it will be some nice weather come Friday and Saturday. And then I really think that the deeper track out here at Del Mar this summer is going to benefit both the horses on the turf and the main track. I think the Southern California horses are going to be fitter than ever this year, Dan.
Okay, that's good info because I have some questions as we start getting into some of these races. I have some questions about a few of them, so we'll get into that. Ellis, you've been known to find a price or two on big weekends like this. High level, when you're using Stats Race Lens, how do you know when you potentially stumbled upon a vulnerable favorite or even better, a horse who might turn out to be an overlay, a big price that could win?
That's a great question. I think you go into a race, and I try not to look at the morning lines. So actually, sometimes it's great because you handicap early, and then you go back and look. And when you have two or three contenders, you can then look at the lines and say, can I make the case for the higher odds of those? Another way I do it in the stakes races, it's a little tougher, but you can still do it in that you look at who you think the favorite is going to be, and you look at a baseline, like let's just say what level they've been running at. Do they have a chink in the armor? Do they need the lead type? Are there other need the lead types? What are their Equibase speed figures? And use that as a baseline and look at other horses that are as good and try and make the case that they can compete with that favorite. And then when you do check the odds, you hope you're right. So at least even if you land on two or three horses at about equal probability and think that the favorite is one of them, you still have a couple other price potentials. The other thing is, of course, sometimes you look at it and say, this horse could be the favorite. Here's a big knock on him or her. And these two horses are just as good. Ooh, they're good odds. So that's how I approach these types of races.
I like it. I like it. We'll see some of it in practice here over the next hour as we get into some of the races. Before we dive in, I just want to let everyone watching know that this week only, big savings when you get Stats Race Lens. This week only, you get more than 50% off a quarterly subscription. It's usually $299 right now, $146 for 3 months. That's less than $50 a month. Deep discount there. The promo code you're going to want to use is Derby146. That's Derby146. No space between the letters or the numbers. And that promo is valid through Derby Day. So you've got some time. Get on there. Get on Stats Race Lens. If you're not convinced yet that you may want to get Stats Race Lens by the end of this, pretty sure you're going to be intrigued by some of the features we're going to lay out for you here as we go through the Oaks and Derby card. So let's go. We're going to go in chronological order. Spend most of our time talking about Oaks and Derby, but we will kick it off with the Edgewood Stakes, which is race 9 on the Friday card. 3-year-old fillies going a mile on the turf. And Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf winner Sharing is probably going to go off at a really short price here. But Ellis, I know that while using Stats Race Lens, to the point that you just made a moment ago, you found a horse who looks just as viable at a better price. So I'll let you get into how you parse the two and how you might approach this race.
Well, this is exactly what you asked me, Dan, and what I did is exactly the method. Is that I know Sharing is going to be the favorite. She won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. She came back off a layoff November to May and won the Tepin, went to Ascot, ran second. We know she's going to be tough. She's classy. She's done nothing wrong, never been worse than, she's won 4 or 6, never been worse than third. And I was scanning the PPs looking for something similar, and her last US Equibase speed figure is that 105. We do make speed figures, Trackmaster and Equibase do, for the foreign races. So 112 from Ascot. And then I went and looked at all the other horses, and I went down to Walk in Marrakesh. Now we're going to go to her, and we're going to see the 108 last race. You can all see a nice pattern there, as you'd expect as a horse gets better as a 3-year-old, just like with the Colts, 90 to 100 to 108, and she lost by a neck. Now, what is interesting is also Stats Racelands easily points out trouble. And you look at those other 2 races, the Sanibel Island on March 28th and the Tepin on May 23rd, you see that red triangle. And that will help you to determine whether you want to look at the chart, which is linked out from the date, or watch the video. And if we can, I'd like to look at the last 1/8 of a mile from that last race, not the trouble line, but from the Appalachian, and watch how she just battles and battles and battles down to the wire with Enola Gay. She actually makes the lead. Walk in Marrakesh does. She's in the white and dark green on the outside. I think she's the 6, and she will get into this battle, and she will dig in. And somebody had to lose that day. Unfortunately, it was her. She gets her head in front, and then Enola Gay comes back to beat her right on the money. And then you have another horse closing like a shot, which is Alms. So back to the PPs, we know that's a 108 figure. We had already looked at the 105 for sharing in the US, and the 112, of course, good. Walk in Marrakesh is on the pattern, 90 to 100 to 108 to improve. And those other 2 races, I'm not going to bore everybody with it, but I loved her in both the Tepin and in the Appalachian off of the first trouble line in the Sanibel Island, but even worse in the Tepin, she had nowhere to run. And that's why, with a clearer path, which she did have, now she gets Castellano, that should not be a problem. So I think that's the reason I gravitated to her. She's 6 to 1 on the morning line, 2 trouble lines, and just to win. Don't know that she'd be much lower than 6 to 1 with sharing in the race if she had actually won that race. But it is an A race and as good as sharing's races. The other thing, go back to sharing, we're going to look at when a horse does come back from going overseas, besides the speed figures, you look at the workouts. And of course, that race was June 20th. So we'll go out of the workout line and we'll say June 12th, then July 18th is when she came back. And you can see there are 5 workouts, including 3 bullets. Not a lot of horses in those, one of them at 26 at Fair Hills, but best of the day works at all 3. There's no question. The last thing I want to do is, and I did this after, was go to the True Odds. And of course, this being a turf race, I want to check late pace. Stats Racelands allows you to do that very easily. You click on the late pace column and a sort from high to low, and voila, the 2 horses I just talked about are 1-2 in terms of late pace. So the play in the race is going to be a win bet on Walk in Marrakesh and a very strong exacta box between Walk in Marrakesh and sharing. Even though there are some other good horses in the race, just as a note, I might use the 2 Handy Woods, who's 3rd best, as you can see, on late pace, and I might use the 6 Pranked, who's 4th best in trifectas in the 3rd position. But I think these 2 stand out.
Yeah, obviously we'll keep an eye on the board there as it gets closer to post time on Friday. 6 to 1, certainly a lot more appealing than 6 to 5, and we'll see if Walk in Marrakesh takes more action on Friday. Otherwise, logically, a horse to take a close look at. And Ellis, we're going to lean on you for this race. Christina, we're going to pivot to the Oaks and get some of your thoughts as we look at what is an absolute spectacular race, because it is headlined by the 2 horses in here, the 1 horse, Swiss Skydiver, and Gamine, who of course are getting all the attention. And so when we look at this race, a couple of questions come to mind, specifically, is this really as simple as that? Is it just a 2-horse race? And then aside from that, how do you envision the pace unfolding? The Swiss Skydiver being down on the rail usually shows speed forwardly placed, but as we know, Gamine extremely fast as well. So I threw a couple of things at you, Christina. handle them as you decide, as you wish.
Yeah, it's a really dynamic race, isn't it? And I do, for the most part, think that most people are going to land on those top two. But I think there's a couple others in here that really do have the opportunity to upset. I'll start first with Swiss Skydiver, just because she is going to be my top selection, and we can take a look at her past performances. I'm very disappointed that she drew the rail, because I don't think this is the best spot for her. But Tyler Gasleon is one of those riders that I find to be so impressive in his patience and working out a trip. I do think that some of the other fillies in here are going to clear her, but I think that's okay. I think she can relax, and I think she's better off if she does. Her last race, she's proven beyond the distance of the Kentucky Oaks, that 1.25-mile victory in the Alabama. She has a good record at Churchill. She's on the board in both of her races here. And she's just a real throwback. I mean, she ran against the boys in the Bluegrass 2 starts back. She was second behind Art Collector, who unfortunately won't compete in the Derby this year. But everything about this filly has been impressive, and impressive on a consistent basis throughout the entire year. She has not missed a dance. There's been a little talk about how she looks this week at Churchill, and if that is taking a bit of a toll on her. I will say that I was at Santa Anita on June the 6th when she won the Santa Anita Oaks, and I found myself very underwhelmed by her physically. I just think that's kind of her. I don't think she's one that comes out there, shining like a copper penny, this chestnut daughter of Daredevil. So she is going to be my top pick, but I wanted to talk about a long shot for you, and that's the 3, Donna Veloce. Donna Veloce is probably one of the most brilliant fillies that Simon Callahan has ever trained, and that's a high statement when you consider some of the horses that he has had and the position that he's been in the Kentucky Oaks. He's been here many times with a favorite. Here he is with a long shot. Her second career start was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She was second by a neck. It was a hard-fought battle that day. She ended up behind British Idiom, and that was her first attempt around 2 turns. I think when you consider her pedigree, daughter of Uncle Mo, she's out of Anjou, Irish mare. She is going to have no problem with a little added distance, and the layoff doesn't really worry me. I took a look at Simon Callahan and his statistics with regard to graded stakes off the layoff, and this is where that stats data really comes in handy for you. From 61 to 180 days, we'll filter the timing that way, because that's sort of the chunk of time that we fit into with her. And then specifically in graded stakes, you see there, he's 4 for 20. He's 20%, 45% in the money. And then if you also just hit that finish button so we can see who those horses were that went ahead and won for him. I mean, this is a look at how many nice fillies that he has had the chance to train. Donna Veloce is one of them. Hostess, you can see Bellafina, Beau Recall, who will compete on the program, but for Brad Cox at this point. But Simon Callahan is good in this scenario, and I think when you have a horse like Donna Veloce, who clearly is brilliant, these are the times when you might be able to call on them to get it done. Swiss Skydiver, I mentioned, does draw the rail. Gamine, I think as you send her around 2 turns, you take away a little bit of her brilliance. I thought She Dares the Devil was live. A lot of people like her with her record at Churchill Downs. So I think this is a very good race, Dan, in terms of, how the prices will fare. I think you're going to get them certainly in the exactas and the tries. I think it's an opportunity perhaps for an upset. I'll put Swiss Skydiver on top, but I will be using Donna Veloce in everything.
Yeah, and this was one when I mentioned earlier that I was curious to hear your take on Donna Veloce. To me, at least in this spot, seems a wild card. I think 15 to 1 is a bit unfair. I do realize Gamine and Swiss Skydiver are going to take a lot of action, but I would be surprised if Donna Veloce goes off at 15 to 1. And the other thing I was interested, Christina, just to go back to you briefly on this, if you had any other insight on this, like from what I've read, Simon Callahan said she had a little minor thing, and that's what's kept her out of action. Is there any word on what that actually was, and if that's cleared up? Is that resolved? Is she at 100%?
I don't know what that was, because I think they have kind of kept that close to the vest. But I have seen her train a lot lately, and she looks just as good as ever. She's also grown quite a bit. She's filled out a lot. She's always had the big, beautiful frame, but she just physically looks great. She's carrying a lot of flesh, a lot of muscle tone. I think she is 100% fit. And to my point from the Open, the track here at Del Mar is very deep right now. It's different than it has been in the past. And I think that is going to be something that really helps her and all of the California horses, because the clay-based surface there at Churchill, horses spring over that. That's why a lot of turf or synthetic horses like the main track there, because they like that feeling of that bounce. When you have a horse that's so fit like she is just going to fly over that surface.
All right, like the sounds of that. Interestingly, Speech is a horse who there's a lot of buzz around. 5-1 on the morning line. Yet Donna Veloce beat Speech when last seen in March. Ellis, let's turn to you. I know you like Speech a bit as well, and you like the top two contenders. How do you rank them?
Well, let's talk about one thing, two things actually, and I'm glad you brought up the Donna Veloci, the 6 months, which is a concern of mine. Just it's tough to do that, even though she is talented. But let's look at Swiss Skydiver for a second. I want to say one thing specifically about her. Not only you see the last four echo-based speed figures of 104, starting with the Fantasy, 108, 97, 106. And anybody that's looking at any speed figure pattern, even if you're not using the great tool of the Stats Racelands, you'll still see kind of a decline there in that Toyota Bluegrass Stakes. And we're not going to watch it, but if you watch that race, I will guarantee you that when Mike Smith, New Art Collector, was in front, which was at the head of the stretch, he wrapped up. He wrapped up as much on Swiss Skydiver as the winner wrapped up when he was in front. And you'll see Swiss Skydiver was still 4 in front of Rushy. There was no way he had to do anything there. That figure could have easily been over 100. So I don't want anybody to say, oh, well, she took a step back when she went to mile and a eighth. And of course, then she went a mile and a quarter in the Alabama and she crushed him. And she cruised home under wraps with a full tank of gas. So there's no problem with me. The other figures, the 106, 108, and 104, put her, there as the top horse. We could show the last 16th if that's possible real quick of the Alabama. I think I mentioned that just to see what I mean by how wrapped up she was. And I don't know the timestamp, but our able producer here, Tom, will be able to get to that. There it is. And it's almost similar to when she was second in the Bluegrass. At this point, there's nothing to do here. So all that Tyler Gaffleone has to do is just sit. She could have gone even faster. And I think if she did, that 106 figure might have been, you can see he's standing up already, the same as the 111 Gamine, which we're going to look at right now. So we'll go to Gamine in the PPs. And certainly there's no knocks. She's going to be on the lead. Anybody that goes with her is committing pace suicide. 117, 111. But as I said, I think Swiss Skydiver could have pushed 110 if she had not been wrapped up in the Alabama. I also like the cutback from 10 furlongs to 9. Did not do any research on that because it happens very rarely, but horses cutting back in distance should have some extra stamina. What's interesting about Gamine is you'll notice all those workouts at Del Mar, and I do understand Christina's point about the Del Mar deep track helping horses, but man, Churchill Downs historically has been a track where galloping over it is okay, but working over it's even better. Neither Donna Veloci nor Gamine have worked out at Churchill Downs at all. I want to look at Speech though, because what's interesting is when you go to Speech's PPs and you see back on March 8th, as Christina pointed out, that Donna Veloci beat her, and then when she went second to Gamine, where she was getting to Gamine, that was the first time Gamine stretched out to 2 turns, and then she ran second to Swiss Skydiver. She might be a different horse now than she was in any of those 3. It's 3 months later. It's interesting about this COVID deferred Oaks and Derby. That 106 last time out was a career best. And if she takes another 5-point jump, which I think she might do, she's at 111. So now we've got projections, just thinking in my head. Swiss Skydiver about 1.8 to 111, Gamine 111 last time out. And we don't know if she is better around 2 turns than 1. And Speech about 111. I would not ignore Speech at all as a win bet at 5-1. And that's my major play here, is to try and make some money using Swiss Skydiver, Speech, and Gamine, and then throwing in some crazy horses in third and hoping Speech wins, even though I think Swiss Skydiver is the most logical winner.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I started digging into the PPs, I really I thought I was going to like Speech a lot, and I do love the pattern here for her. I think she's coming into this race sitting on another big race, and logically seems like she'll take that next step. Of course, she almost beat Gamine earlier this year at Oaklawn. That was at 1 mile and the 16th, to the point I think that we've kind of all brought up or alluded to. There are some question marks about 1 mile and an eighth. We'll see if that bears out. In looking for value, though, I do want to talk about one other horse who I think represents some extreme value. Christina also referenced this horse briefly, and that's going to be the 7 horse, She Dares the Devil. What I like about her is that she can do it from anywhere in a race. She showed again last out that she can sit off a pace setter and win, as she did in winning the Honeybee back in March. The pace was pretty fast early in the Indiana Oaks, and it was impressive that she was laying so close to it and was still able to roll by the leader in hand and then draw off the way she did. There are a couple of really nice races here, and the one that I actually want to point to is the one that doesn't look nice on paper, but is actually incredible. It's that Fantasy Stakes right there, 3 back. There are 2 moments to note during this race, and let's take a look at it. She Dares the Devil is the 7 horse. You'll see as the gate opens, so the 7 horse, try to track her out of the gate in black silks. She'll come out of the gate, and what I really want you to watch for is what happens here. Going into the first turn, she tries to get to the inside, but she ends up sort of sandwiched between horses, and she gets squeezed back. So as she gets squeezed back, I mean, she ultimately does achieve what she wants. She ends up moving closer to the rail, but she's in pretty tight behind horses, and it takes her a while to really settle into a good stride. And then ultimately, later in the race, she struggles for running room. But let's move ahead to about the 150 mark. By this stage of the race, Swiss Skydiver and Phoenician Harbor are just pulling away. That's it. They're the only 2 horses on the screen. But keep an eye on the rail. Look at what happens once you see. Okay, the horse right there that passed on the rail, that was She Dares the Devil. Now keep watching. Keep watching the rail when they cut to this gallop out. You see that horse flying by? So, look, that was at 1 mile and a 16th. This is at 1 mile and an eighth. Everything I've seen from this filly indicates to me she wants more distance. And if she gets a good enough setup and she has a clean trip, she's dangerous. So I think she's a must-use at a minimum in your exactas and trifectas. We could cut away from this, and I'll go just cut to one other statistic here with Brad Cox specifically. I think we know that he does pretty well. He's a good little trainer. In the past 5 years, though, on the dirt in graded stakes, this is another cool feature here. Doing searches with specific jockeys. Florent Giroux, people obviously they associate Giroux with Cox. But did you know the numbers were this good in graded stakes on the dirt? 37% from a 59 race sample. I mean, that's outrageous. No one wins at 37%. Not even Chad Brown and Jose Ortiz or Irad Ortiz. These are insane numbers. You can see the positive ROI, and then the in the money rate as well. 40 in the money out of 59 starts. If you get anything close to 20 to 1 on She Dares the Devil, go for it. Go for it as hard as you can. In addition, I think Christina did mention earlier, she's 2 for 2 at Churchill. All signs, for me at least, point to She Dares the Devil being a very live long shot in the Kentucky Oaks. Before we move on to Saturday, Ellis, Christina, any other just kind of brief mention of any other long shots or potential horses that can factor into trifectas or anything else here? Christina, start with you.
Well, my horse would be She Dares the Devil. She's the one that I thought, at a bit of a price was the one that was the most intriguing. And I do think she's probably going to get bet down because I feel like, Dan, I know you're on her, and I'm starting to hear more and more people kind of rumbling about She Dares the Devil. She has that 2 for 2 record over the course as well. Some of the others would be a pretty big surprise to me, to be honest. I mean, I think Speech is going to go off your 3rd choice, most likely. I think people are really gravitating towards her. And yeah, She Dares the Devil. I'd be pretty surprised by the horses that we have not mentioned just yet.
All right. Ellis, any bombs for you?
Just another horse I'm going to use. We talked about trying to make money with exactas and trifectas. You mentioned Donna Veloce. I'm on her. Of course, my contenders, Swiss Skydiver, Speech. I'm going to use She Dares the Devil in 2nd and 3rd with the top picks of 1, 4, 5. I'm also going to use Hopeful Growth, who added blinkers last time out, and that was a breakout effort for Hopeful Growth. She's the 8 horse She drew off by 4 to win the Monmouth Oaks. The reason could be identified, even though she kind of ran lousy before that in her other route, the Delaware Oaks. And then she won by 4 with a 97. That 97 figure matches up with, go back to She Shares the Devil. You'll see you both like her, 96 and 97. And one more thing, of course, about She Shares the Devil. She's by the sire Daredevil, who's the sire of Swiss Skydiver. So if we have no doubt that Swiss Skydiver can get 9 furlongs, we should have no doubt that She Shares the Devil can get 9 furlongs.
And I think certainly she backs it up visually as well. So let's do this. Let's turn the page to Saturday. As we move to Saturday, Kentucky Derby Day, we're going to start off with what I thought was one of the tougher races to make heads or tails of. It's the Grade 3 Iroquois. It's the 10th race of the day. Kentucky Derby points race for 2021 on Derby Day 2020. That's kind of odd. Still have not wrapped my mind around that. It's also a win and you're in for this year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile. In a field of 10, we've got 5 horses here making just their second start. Saratoga Special runner-up, the 10, the Ride of a Lifetime is your 7-5 morning line favorite. Christina, using Race Lens, could you find a way around that one? And if so, who?
Yeah, I'm going to try. I respect the favorite quite a bit. I think the Ride of a Lifetime is a very good horse, clearly. He's a one-time winner in 3 starts, but in his other 2 races, the same horse has defeated him, Jackie's Warrior, who has been very, very impressive. The Ride of a Lifetime gets some added distance, which he should appreciate, and that 1-turn mile shouldn't be any problem for him at all. But the horse I'm most interested in is the 5 in here. He's Dreamer's Disease is his name. He's a son of Laoban. Robertino Diodoro trains this horse, and his 2 races look very different. You'll see there in the debut, he was 8th, defeated 25.5 lengths on the main track at Ellis Park, going 1 turn. In his second start, they put him on the turf course and sent him 2 turns, and he was a gate-to-wire winner by 4 lengths at the end. It's easy, I think, to look at this horse initially and just assume that it was the grass that moved him forward. But I think what it was more was just figuring out what to do. He is as green as I have seen a horse be in 2 races. He just really had no clue what was going on the first time, had a ton of trouble. It was kind of his own fault. And then in the next start, he still was sort of all over the place, but he was so good and so fast that nobody was getting to him. So I took a look at the data on this barn, and Robertino Diodoro, he wins at a high percentage with a lot of different statistics. But I wanted to see how he was moving from the turf to the dirt, because this horse is now kind of flip-flopped back and forth in terms of those statistics. And he's very good in this stat, 27% from turf to dirt for the Diodoro barn. And I don't think it was just the grass that moved this horse forward. The offspring of Laoban has been pretty versatile. I think he, likes the added distance. I don't think the turn back is going to be any kind of a problem for him. And there's those numbers, 27%, 59% in the money. And we're talking with 384 starters here. This is a lot of horses in this sample that we're dealing with. There's a lot of horses in this group that are going to take money. I think Super Stock is live. The 3 for Steve Asmussen has been impressive in his races. The 8, Midnight Bourbon, is intriguing as well. And you saw from that initial 2 odds page, we're going to have a good pace in this particular race. There's going to be quite a few of them lining up on lead. You can see all those names highlighted in red. You can also sort from the run style. And this is very evident in this race because you can see right there. But the run style, even on other races that you might have a lone speed or horses that are going to be one of the only closers, this will help you kind of figure out what's going on in terms of the pace. I think Dreamer's Disease is probably going to end up sitting about mid-pack. You can sort of see that there. And I just think he's a really talented horse, and he's just putting it all together right now, Dan. So I believe we'll get a fair enough price. I don't think he's going to be 12-1, but he's going to be my sort of long shot in the Iroquois to try and upset them.
All right, I like that. And like I said, this is a tough race, and as best we can project or any tools we have at our disposal here with Race Lens, it's great, but unfortunately, sometimes with these races where, as I mentioned, you have 5 horses here, only have 1 race under their belt, you may see some changes in tactics. As you mentioned, the 3 horse in particular, Super Stock, one of two horses in for Asmussen. I kind of went to that one a little bit too, especially with Santana being up. So Santana obviously would have his choice between Superstock, the 3, and the 8-horse Midnight Bourbon. He sticks with the 3. I like that. You've also got Dale Romans with two horses in here. He's got the 2-horse Sitting on Go. He's also got the 4-horse Ultimate Badger. And between the two of those, Joe Talamo chooses Ultimate Badger. So again, if you're playing the jockey the jockey carousel and where they jump, where they land, maybe that gives you a little bit of insight at least on those couple of horses. And again, maybe not. Some of the searches you can do here, going to the 1-horse Kenny McPeak.
Dan, let me interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're on the 1. I want to comment because you
Go ahead.
throw an audible out right before we went on the air. I was looking to see how good Kenny McPeak is judging his maidens.
Yeah.
And here's an interesting stat from Stats Race Lens. I went to look for second-time starters who broke their maidens in the stakes on dirt at 2-year-olds.
Okay.
Now, what do you think about that?
What you want to guess? You want a number?
Yeah, you want to guess if he's good and bad and estimating his horses that can go from maiden to stakes when they're young?
I'd guess he's probably 15 to 25%.
He's 5 for 9. He's
Okay,
5 for 9 with
wow.
7 in the money.
Yeah. I mean, the number I'm looking at is 2-year-old graded stakes at Churchill Downs. I mean, so again, a very specific search. You could do all these searches on Race Lens.
Yep.
So you went one route. You got a very specific, again, specific to this horse, making a second start in a graded stake. That's remarkable. So again, if you believe in data and that it bears out, and that trainers who are typically good with these kinds of horses and these kinds of races, Drop Anchor is going to be a tough one to leave off your tickets at 15 to 1 especially. And I would expect, as Christina said, with the 5-horse, expecting Dreamer's Disease to take some money because of the trainer in particular. I think this is another one who will take some money just based on the trainer. So Ellis, anything else you wanted to add about this one before we move on?
No, just that was an interesting stat. And it goes to, if you want to know how good some trainers are at certain things, stats does that where nothing else can, to say he's really good at judging when his horses are ready for stakes, and it's proven out by, again, a small size, but 5 for 9 from 2-year-old maiden winners to stakes is, I think, pretty phenomenal.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next. I believe we're going to the Derby City Distaff. This is another race where Christina has utilized Stats Race Lens to come up with an angle or two and a strong opinion here, I believe, on the 1-horse Mia Mischief. Christina, tell us about it.
Yeah, that's right. It's a very good race. Serengeti Empress is intriguing in there, and I think going to get a lot of attention. She's the 8-horse, just a monster effort from her last time out in the Ballerina. She took all the heat early on. She battled. She held off Bellafina. In the end, she will come back to try and take her on again today. I thought there were some prices in here that were intriguing as well. But when I started to watch replays, Mia Mischief really impressed me. Let's go back to her. She's the 1. She loves Churchill, first of all. She's 5 for 9 over this track. And I find that the horse-for-horse angle at Churchill is one of the strongest of any of the racetracks that you'll handicap. But let's take a look at the replay of the Madison at Keeneland. This was her last race, so it was July the 11th, because we had that summer meeting at Keeneland this year. And I want to pick it up just right prior to the quarter pole, because she's kind of dueling and basically head and head with Guarana throughout the entire race. Those two get it on. And then as soon as we hit here, watch her just to the outside, kick clear for a while. She has this burst of acceleration after already battling throughout the field or throughout the race that I thought is very impressive. Now, in the end, Guarana is just this stone cold killer. She's going to come back and battle back and go by her. But we don't have Guarana in this field, and I don't know who's going to re-break like that against her if Mia Mischief comes with that same move. She is along the inside. She's going to have to, end up being part of the pace scenario. Serengeti Empress really has only one way to go. She is going to the lead. We know that about her. I'm actually expecting Santana to see if he can't get her to rate just a little bit, perhaps, and sit behind her or behind, angle to the outside of her and any others that want to take on Serengeti Empress from the get-go. but I think that burst of acceleration is really going to help Mia Mischief. And then after watching the replays and kind of being intrigued by that, I went to the True Odds page and I filtered for late pace because that's always something I'm interested in. I always want to take a closer look at the pace scenario. The late pace figure really confirmed what I saw in those replays visually, just how fast she finishes her races. You can see she's at 120. She's above everybody in this field, and she's well above Serengeti Empress, who's going to take all the attention, and Cece, who I also think is going to get a big look in here. Cece turns back. She's the 10 to the outside for Michael McCarthy. She's been routing. She is a multiple grade 1 winner going 2 turns. But in her last 2 races, to me, she's just been really flat. And I think this is a good move from Michael McCarthy. It might end up working out, and I think she's going to come with a big run. But I kind of want to see one from her right now because in watching her last 2 starts, she's just not really laying her body down like she was in the past. So I'm going to go for Mia Mischief in the Derby City Distaff. She loves Churchill. She has that acceleration. And she really just needs somebody else to try and soften up Serengeti Empress on the front end if they can.
Christina, last time we were on, we did a show. I gave you a little bit of a hard time for not going, not sticking with the West Coast. And you tried to warn me. You told me, I don't know, man. Betting Bellafina outside of California in the ballerina. I could tell you were sending me signals to say, Dan, just don't do it. Just don't do it.
I actually think she ran better than I thought she would that day too in the ballerina. She impressed me. I had not seen a race like that from her outside of California.
So she should have won that race.
She was right there, and she had every chance to go by, I thought. But we'll see what she does with Churchill. She's one thing for sure. She shows up every time. She doesn't get the win as often. She likes to run second too, but she does show up.
All right. I was hoping you would completely talk me out of her. That sounds like a semi don't do it. Just trying to read between the lines.
Are you going back for more? You're going back for more again?
I don't want to. No, I don't want to. I mean, I'm gonna probably use her in some tickets. I can't go as aggressively on her as I did last time. You can't get a better setup than she had last time. Look, I think Serengeti Empress, it would be she hasn't strung together 2 consecutive races like her ballerina. She hasn't strung together 2 consecutive efforts like that in her entire career. So I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and proceed with the expectation that Serengeti Empress is gonna regress a little bit. That being said, I just feel with Bellafina at this point, there will be somebody else that she can't get by. Maybe it's Cece, maybe it's Mia Mischief. One that I thought was interesting here potentially was Sally's Curlin. And we did see that Brian Hernandez will actually be riding this weekend, which I was happy to see. Getting the mount here, I think he's a bit of an upgrade in this spot. And I mean, look, there were a number of things I liked about Sally's Curlin. She's 3 for 6 at Churchill Downs. I think she ran a sneaky good race in the Madison. It was basically a 2-horse race, as we saw, between Guarana and Mia Mischief. No one really made a move from the back at all, except for this horse. And she was super green in the stretch. I think she's a horse who, in some ways, even though she's been graded stakes tried and tested, she's just starting to figure things out. And I thought that for a first race back off a little break bodes well for her on Saturday. So Sally's Curlin, I think, is a potential value play there at a minimum on your exotic tickets. I'm also going to use her in my late sequences. I think she's got a decent shot to upset this group. Because I think once you get past Serengeti Empress and the dynamic of her sort of biggest weapon being her speed, and if you can get comfortable with the idea that she's not going to run the way she did last out again, then you start, everything sort of opens up. Ellis, any thoughts on this one before we move on?
I do. I think that there's more to take on Serengeti Empress. She had the rail last time. And this time there's Lady Kate in the field who won before last at a 1-turn mile at Churchill, went 45. And also there's She's So Majestic who can run 44. So I don't think Serengeti Empress gets the easy lead in the rail. I'm all over Mia Mischief. I agree with Christina. And I think Cece cutting back is a great opportunity.
All right. Well, let's jump ahead to race 13. It's the Turf Classic, mile and an eighth on the turf. There seems to be, I think at least, a distinct possibility that there might be a little bit of a pace battle, as much as there could be, in a race like this, going a mile and an eighth. The horse on the rail, Factor This, is looks like the best of the speed, potentially the speed of the speed. Comes in on a 4-race winning streak, and the question is, will his speed carry him this mile and an eighth? He is 3 for 4 at the distance, but there's also speed drawn to the outside. Some like it Hot Brown, the 9, and the 10-horse Spectacular Gem have also won on the front end. I wanted to talk about a horse that I thought might be a little bit of a value play. You're not going to get a huge price, but you might get 4 or 5 to 1 on them. If we're lucky, if some of the ones that I mentioned take any action, and that's the 3-horse Rock Emperor. Hasn't won in the U.S. yet, but only missed by a nose in the Grade 1 Manhattan and the Grade 2 Whittingham, as you see there. Were it not for an insane late burst by Instill Regard in the Manhattan, I think Rock Emperor would have pretty clearly won that race over a really nice group, and that was despite having to wait for running room in the stretch. And then 2 back in the Whittingham, he just lost a head bob to United. He ended up getting DQ'd to 3rd, but you could argue that he was, I think the best horse on that day. Now, 3 back in the Muniz. This is a race that I want to take a look at just briefly here. We could pick it up really midway down the backstretch and try to locate Rock Emperor, who's going to be the 4-horse here. You'll see the horses up front. Okay, so the 4-horse in the white silks. There you go, 3rd or 4th from last right now. Now, keep an eye. Your top 2 horses are 9, 11, 3, and the 3 is getting a perfect trip on the rail. You've got the 9, the 3, basically up front the whole time, and they're there. Who else is closing from the back? Nobody. Look at the Rocket though. Look at the yellow saddle towel there, just flying through the stretch. Obviously, a bit too late. That move right there, I thought was super impressive, especially when you saw the one horse in this race, Factor This, who was the 9 there, who won the race. So that's Factor This. And the other one that you saw on the rail was Don't Blame Rocket, who also comes back in the Turf Classic. So you got 2 horses who are coming out of a big race. Again, it's a few months back now. They've each had some races in them since then. And you have this horse, Rock Emperor, showing obviously that he's got the ability to close on them when no one else is. And so I thought that was impressive because of how far back he was. He's not usually that far back, as we've seen in recent races. I just think he's quality, he's class, he's in good form. I also like Johnny V up with him. I think it's just a perfect union here. And I wanted to show a quick stat here. Whenever we talk about Chad Brown, we think about, as I mentioned earlier, Irad Ortiz, Jose Ortiz, Javier Castellano. But did you know, with Johnny V, over the past 3 years in graded stakes on the turf, look at those numbers. 35% win percentage, 12 wins out of 34 starts, 22 in the money. Johnny V up for Chad, those numbers are as good as any. And again, I didn't compare them to Irad and Jose on the turf, but I would think they might actually be better than Jose and Irad on the turf up for Chad. And so I like the fact that Johnny's obviously riding only a select few for Chad, and they're all quality. You can look at the name of some of these horses that you'll remember as being super classy, super good horses. From Cambier Park, Raving Beauty, significant form, obviously. Rock Emperor there now as well. And so I think this is just a super quality horse. And I think this is his day. There are a lot of good horses in this race, including, the 8-horse Sacred Life. That's another Chad Brown who blew away the Ocean Port last out at Monmouth off of an extended break. With that one, really the only bad race you see for Sacred Life. If you look at the 8-horse there. If you look at his PPs, is the Pegasus World Cup turf, and that was when he was off Lasix. Apart from that race, the horse has done nothing wrong and is always right there. So I think he's super dangerous. But for me, it was Rock Emperor. I don't know. Christina, Ellis, any thoughts on this race before we move on to the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, I thought it was a great race, Dan. I took a long look at it, and I like Rock Emperor. And I'm glad to hear your case because at first I was kind of worried that he isn't as effective unless he's going a little bit farther, in which case he's kind of able to be a little closer to a slower pace. But you make a good case for him. The horse that I ended up choosing was Sacred Life. Farther out that he's the 8 in there. I just really liked his last race at Monmouth, as you mentioned, the Oceanport. He was 4-length winner that day. And I look back at his European form, his French form. I mean, he was second behind Gaillac back in the Prince d'Orange in September of 2018. I know it was a long time ago, but I think this is a horse that's kind of maybe that Chad needed to have a little more time with him and get him to kind of come back around to where he wants and maybe some of that prior European form. I think he's on the upswing right now, so he was my pick in there. But either way, I guess it looks like Chad Brown has him surrounded.
Yeah, he always does in these turf-graded stakes races on big days. Ellis, quick thoughts here on the Turf Classic?
Well, you've made good cases for both of those. You made a great case for the pace scenario. I would add Bowie's Hero. I think that if he runs back to the 2019 Eddie Reed, he can win this. That was one of his best, his only win at 9 furlongs. He was over. He is 1 for 7 now. He's third off a almost 7-month layoff, and he is improving. He ran 4th in this year's Eddie Reed, but it must be noted that the race was won by United, who's all class, and then Sharp Samurai, who came back to run second in the Pacific Classic. So I think Bowie's Hero needs to be considered here.
Christina, before we move on, do you have any feel for Bowie's Hero as a horse who is, obviously run just about all of his recent races out west? The potential for him to come here and win a race like this?
Yeah, to be honest, I was almost a little surprised that he is going to ship for Phil D'Amato because I wasn't as impressed with his Eddie Reed. I just think I've seen him look better. But then again, you look back to that Shadow Mile, and he's a price that day, and he's kind of coming off a similar race, and he rallies from off the pace, and he gets the win. So I think, you got to be in it to win it, right? And that's a big part of the reason that Phil D'Amato would send him out there. We're not going to be back at Santa Anita for a little while, so it's a lot of money on the line. He's going to go for it. He does come with that late closing kick every time. We'll see if he gets enough of a pace set up front for him, but I just wasn't all that impressed by his last race myself.
Okay. All righty. Well, that brings us to the big one, the main event. Race 14 on Saturday, 7:01 p.m. Eastern, is the Kentucky Derby. We all know the headline here and the main attraction. It's "'Tis the Law." If you've been following the news or reports or Twitter or anything over the past few days, a lot of the buzz, the fact that he drew post 17. No Derby winner has ever come from post 17. So there's that. We can dig into that. We can dig into the pace scenario, which I think is probably a bigger factor from that 17 post, considering some of the speed inside and outside of him. And once we talk about who we each like, I'd like to do kind of a word association thing where we kind of go through the field, and I'll ask you all to just throw out a word or two about what you think about some of the other contenders we might not touch on when we talk about who our top choices are. Christina, starting with you, I know you've got a couple that you like outside of "'Tis the Law, so kick it off for us.
I do, yeah. So I'll just kind of go in order here, maybe of the few horses I wanted to point out. Let's start with the 7 in this group, and that is Money Moves. Money Moves is a horse that I think is very rapidly improving. I'm not saying I think he's going to beat "'Tis the Law" or Honor AP, but I do think he's going to take enough of a jump forward to hit the board. He's 2 for 3 lifetime. You can see there he broke his maiden sloppy track, going just 6 furlongs in February. Came back with a non-1 event where he was a winner. And then he came off the layoff at Saratoga last time out, going the 1.8 mile, which is really demanding. And you could tell that, deep stretch, he was fighting. He was kind of laying it down out there. He ends up second by a neck. It's a very strong equibase speed figure for him. As you can see, that 109 is very sharp. And then I took a look at Todd Fletcher, second off the layoff. And Fletcher, we know that he's high in a lot of these different statistics. But overall, if you just look at him with horses that run second off a break, and when you consider how taxing and how difficult that race was, and then the fact that this horse is quickly developing, you end up seeing the 21% second off the layoff. And with a horse that's, still learning, 23%, I should say, with a horse that's still learning and just getting better each and every time, I think Money Moves is an intriguing horse. And then based on his pedigree as well, he's a son of Candy Ride, and I've kind of done these searches so many times here and there that I remember, the Candy Rides, the Uncle Mo's, the Hard Spun. They really do well as we get to this, distance to ground, these classic 1.25 mile distances. The other horse I wanted to talk about was 1,000 Words, and just kind of a note on him. He is a son of Pioneer of the Nile. Florent Giroux is going to be aboard for Bob Baffert. He's another horse that, talking about the track at Del Mar and how fit I think he is, and just been talking to Bob here and there throughout the meet. I think he's coming on a lot right now, this horse. He's improving quite a bit. He sort of was impressive as a 2-year-old, and then he fell off form a little bit. He got a little flat towards the mid portion of the year, but he's on the upswing, the 10,000 Words. I think he might be a horse that outruns his odds, and I think he is going to be every bit of that 15-1 because of the Baffert's Authentic will be more fancy. But I am not going to abandon my horse. Honor AP has been the horse that I have been looking at for the Kentucky Derby since last year, before he ever debuted, before we ever saw him out there on the racetrack. I wanted to take a look at his Santa Anita Derby replay if we can. A lot of people were disappointed in the fact that he lost the Shared Belief behind 1,000 Words. It really didn't knock my confidence in him. That race was at 1 mile and a 16th. This horse is just getting warmed up at 1 mile and a 16th. 1,000 Words kind of got away from him. But in the Santa Anita Derby is when you can really see that stride of his, how talented he is, and how if he gets a clear trip and a little bit of pace to run out, just how good he really is. That he's a son of Honor Code. He's out of that brilliant mare, Hollywood Story, pedigree, both sides here. And I think he's made a nice impression out there at Churchill the last couple of days. Been watching on their morning show. He's traveled well. He's mature. He's, cool, calm, and collected. And once he gets rolling, man, he is like an express train. You can see it right there. Just covers so much ground. The other thing, Dan, that I'll note about him is that Mike Smith has been working him here at Del Mar in the afternoons. Jockeys are not allowed to be on horses in the morning because of COVID restrictions. So if a rider wants to breeze a stakes horse, they have to do so at about 12:45 before we begin the racing. And Mike Smith has been teaching him so much in those works, and teaching him to be a little more like Tis the Law, to be honest, teaching him to be very responsive to his cues, to really accelerate when he needs to run through the wire. I think you're going to see the best version of Honor AP, and to me, he's one of the only horses in this group, Dan, that really has a shot to defeat Tis the Law and to be your winner.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that there was the scratch of Art Collector, who obviously was another one who seemed to would have had a viable shot. And I'm with you on Honor AP 100%. I don't put too much stock in the Shared Belief Stakes as well. I think that if you look at it as just a loss, you might be discouraged. But if you look at the race, how it unfolded and how it really set up for 1,000 Words, and how Honor AP didn't really need to win that race and was not ever really asked to win that race. I don't think you should have much concern about that. And I agree with that. Santa Anita Derby was breathtaking, and even his first race back this year, when he was second to Authentic, it was a pretty solid effort for his first race of the year against an Authentic who was absolutely breathing fire at that moment and was also loose on the lead. So as we talk about pace a little bit, I'd like to kick it over to Ellis. And again, as we look into how this race might unfold from a pace perspective, Ellis, what do you think about Tis the Law and the 17 hole and New York Traffic down to the inside, who's got some speed with Paco up, who can always, wreak havoc? How did you see that whole thing unfolding? Because I know that you like New York Traffic a little bit, as well as Tis the Law.
Well, we go to the pace projector now and then come back. So we'll go to the pace projector right now quick. And it's obvious, it looks like that 18 Authentic is going to go. And Honor AP will be sitting second. And this also projects Storm the Court, who did wire the field in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile how he posted the upset, and he was very close last time out to a fast pace in the La Jolla on grass. So we'll go back to PPs for Tisdalaw, and there's not a lot of reason to talk up this horse, but I want to say historically every year when I do the Derby, which is now going on 25, 6, 7, 8, I can't count years that I've done something for the Derby. I always look for the horse that has the turn of foot from the 3/8 pole to the 8th pole, because in the Derby, that move to go around horses from wherever you're at and be in front, and then just the rest are kind of staggering by then. Hardly anybody passes in the last 8th is the way to do it. So we'll look at Tisdalaw and the PPs, and I just want to show that we'll go to 17, and when we go to it, we will show his third call back, which is about the quarter pole. And in that third call back for the 17th is the law. He's usually third, second, especially the last 2 races. And then you see the 8th pole call, which is the stretch call, always at the 8th pole. He's up by 4.5 and up by 4 in the last 2. That's the move. And no other horse this race has that kind of burst of speed to go by at that point and then just coast the rest of the way. So that's why it's him and everybody else, in my opinion. The question now is, how do you make money? And maybe somebody can upset, which is at some odds. I will take a few shots with other horses. So we're going to look then at the 15 NY Traffic, and that last race in which he ran second to Authentic, which he was gained to Authentic, was the second time he'd run that far. If you look back 3 back in the Louisiana Derby, which is a mile and 3/16, he ran second around the track. Now keep in mind that Wells Bayou wired the field that day, and nobody was going to catch him on that ridiculously slow pace of 48 112.4, but a little faster pace last time out. NY Traffic or New York Traffic was really closing, and today he's drawn inside of Authentic. So the pace scenario, as you asked Dan, Authentic's going to go Honor AP. There are some others. New York Traffic will be with Tisdalaw in 3rd or 4th, probably 5th at the worst, and it gives him a chance. That 109 equal-based speed figure was the best. It's nowhere near Tisdalaw's 115, 113, 112, but he did jump up a lot, and he's just now getting it. And I like him a decent amount here as a horse that can run 2nd or 3rd for sure. 2 others to look at. One, you talked about Money Moves. I'm not going to talk about him much. Go to the 7. We'll go back to late pace actually first. Goes back to True Odds and Soar on late pace, and we'll see those are the 3 horses as well. When you sort of the late pace column, you will see Tisdalaw, Money Moves, New York Traffic, then Authentic, who we know is going to be tired after being on the lead, no matter how much he kicks late. So those are the 3 anyway. Now go back to PPs, and we'll go back to Money Moves, and that 109 figure is all I want to talk about. That's the same as New York Traffic's 109. That makes them even, which is interesting because Money Moves is 30 and New York Traffic is 20. So those are good horses to use. The last one I want to talk about, actually, I want to go talk about the horses you talked about earlier, the Californians, and I'm going to take an opposite position from Christina. And I know everybody likes different opinions here. The fact that Authentic beat Honor AP in the San Felipe, Honor AP beat Authentic in the San Diego Derby, and then 1,000 Words beat Honor AP in the Shared Belief kind of has me concerned. These 3 horses have taken turns beating each other with not one asserting themselves, and by that same token, neither has that big burst of speed that Tisdalaw has. And just visually, I can see them all getting swamped by a couple of horses running by in the last 8, and those couple of horses or 3 horses are probably Money Moves, New York Traffic, and Tisdalaw. So I'm really relegating, just so everybody knows, I'm relegating 1,000 Words, Authentic, and Honor AP to probably 3rd or 4th here. I don't have much interest. Maybe I'll play him on a couple tickets in 2nd on Tisdalaw with trifectas. The other one I want to look at quick is the 12 Sol Volante as a horse that can be in the trifecta, just really quick, because his race in the Sam F. Davis was that kind of move. He moved early. He went from 15 back to 2 back to a half back to win. Then second at King Guillermo, caught him by surprise. And then that mile at Gulfstream, which he beat Jesus's team, who was going to be in the race, is not. And then the Belmont. If you could draw a line through the Belmont, you look back at the Gulfstream race with that 107 figure, you can do it. And his breeding screams a mile and a quarter. I've mentioned this before, I think on webinar, or I know I've done it in blogs, like my Equibase full card selections, and this is the race of the week that'll be up as well. That this damn Light Blow is by King Bombo, and King Bombo is a mile and a half horse. But Light Blow produced a horse that most people haven't heard of, and I can't remember the horse's name. The horse just stayed in the Northwest and won 6 or 7 races, including losing by a neck in the Canadian Derby, which is a mile and a quarter race at Hastings, 3 turns. This horse is bred to run all day, and I think he'll be coming from last and passing a lot of horses who are stamina encumbered here.
So shots fired, obviously, from Ellis here. Not in love with the West Coast horses. Christina, I also need a tiebreaker from you. Is it New York traffic or NY traffic?
That's a good question. I've been saying New York traffic, but I don't know the answer to that. And I do take Ellis's point about, you know, them just kind of trading punches and beating each other. I think that's very fair. But I've just seen more from Honor AP in his works recently, more than, you know, what he showed in that Shared Belief. So I'm kind of banking on him improving again this weekend.
Yep. As am I. I want to ask you, Christine, also one other question, which I kind of set Ellis up for, but he didn't really take the bait. Paco Lopez, known for riding shenanigans, you know, one of the least safe riders in the country. I think it's known that he, you know, he'll do what he has to do to give his horse an advantage. If you look at the Matt Winn, and we don't have to pull that replay up, I'll just take my word for it. He basically, out of the gate, just took a straight path for about a quarter of a mile so that every horse outside of him stayed wide. He's going to do that again here, isn't he, Christina?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think it's very possible. You know, luckily, we finally have the 20-horse starting gate this year. So hopefully that kind of takes out a little bit of the bumping that tends to happen and the sort of craziness of the auxiliary gate that we had in the past. So everybody could have a square shot down the track. But I think pace-wise, even though Honor AP and Tis the Law both have a lot of speed, I actually think they're going to both sit a little farther back in this race than they normally have. I think they're both going to want to stay to the outside, but I think that if Paco Lopez does that, Mike Smith and Manny Franco, they're going to take a hold and just wait and tuck in for a little bit, let him do whatever he wants to do into the first turn. I think Johnny Velasquez is going to be pretty committed with Authentic. I think he does want the lead, but I think the other two will let that happen in front of them, you know, try to tuck in before we get to the turn, and then just keep both of their horses to the outside. I think the biggest thing for Honor AP and Tis the Law, they both have those big strides. They cover so much ground. These horses don't want to get stopped. They don't have any concerns about the distance. So I think they'd rather give up a little ground and be wide than risk getting in trouble or getting pinned in.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think we'll know a lot. I mean, through that first quarter of a mile, you know, going into that first turn, we'll know, you know, there may be some horses that are up against it coming out of that turn and going on to the back stretch. And there may be a few others who find themselves in good position. Yeah, I want to talk about one other horse just to the inside of New York traffic, two gates over in hole number 13, Attachment Rate. This is a horse that I brought up a couple of weeks back when we were on talking about the Ellis Park Derby. This was a long shot that I liked in that race. You know, probably a bit ambitious to think that he could beat Art Collector, but he was a game second in that race. You know, Art Collector, of course, would have been the second choice in the Kentucky Derby, or at least co-second, maybe second or third choice with Honor AP. So, you know, seeing as I really liked Art Collector, I mean, I still really like Attachment Rate. And again, in that Ellis Park Derby, as you know, Attachment Rate has done seemingly in every single race, he was extremely wide, complete disregard for ground loss, just wide throughout, but still had enough in reserve to kind of kick on late. He's a horse who looks like he wants to run all day long, just never really looks tired. His gallop outs look spectacular. Go to the Bluegrass Stakes, watch the gallop out there. Watch the gallop out in the Ellis Park Derby. He goes by Art Collector not too far after the finish line, a couple of strides really after the finish line. So he's a horse who I don't have any concerns with when it comes to distance. You look at some of his other races going back to April, finished second to Dr. Post, who subsequently went on to finish second in the Belmont Stakes at Tis the Law. So I think this horse has been keeping the right kind of company, and is just extremely just sort of under the radar at this moment. When in fact, if you watch his replays, he's been game, and he's actually had excuses. I think more excuses than some of the others that people try to make, a case for. And you can see those excuses on the right side there with all the trouble indicators going back in 3 of the past 4 races: bumped, bothered at the start, in tight into first turn, bumped. And then again, take my word for it, I've watched these replays numerous times. He's wide in every single one of those races, and he's got just this huge heart, and he just keeps fighting on. So I'm not saying that attachment rate is going to win, but I would not leave this horse off if you're playing the trifectas and supers. I think you've absolutely got to use this horse. And he also shows. Look at those last 3 races. Look at those Equibase. Look at the Equibase speed figures. I mean, he's up there in the upper 90s after those two, the 89 and 93, kind of right there in the middle. But if he hits that upper 90, if he can just take a little bit, do a little bit more than that, hit that low to mid 100 range, I think he's definitely in the mix for a placing somewhere. So anyhow, that's my price. Now, what I'd like to do, as I promised, is I'd like to go back to the very top. Let's go back to the 1 horse, Finnick the Fierce. And if we could, we'll do Christina, then Ellis for each horse. Just a word or two on each one of these horses. Interested in knowing opinion. So as we start with Finnick the Fierce, you can see 50 to 1, not much in the last few races. Interestingly, though, has the distinction of being the only horse in this field to finish ahead of Tis the Law. Did that in the Kentucky Jockey Club last year. So I just said a lot, and I shouldn't have said that much because I wanted to leave you guys each something to say, and I wanted an opinion on it. So Christina, Finnick the Fierce, yay or nay?
Nay, and I feel so bad for him because this is the worst possible post position for this horse. He only has one eye. He's missing his left eye to not be able to see the rail. I mean, this is really stacking the deck against Finnick the Fierce. He's gritty. He's going to try hard, but he has a lot to overcome.
Ellis.
Max Player.
You're just moving on to Max Player? You're not going to give us anything on Finnick the Fierce?
Oh, I thought we were doing one-on-one. I didn't know each horse. Okay, fine.
I just want a yay or nay.
Yeah, I'll just call him Fierce.
Okay. All right. Go, you start us off with the Max Player. What do you think, Ellis?
He's paired Equibase figures in his last 2, so he's not going to go up. 105, 105. Well beaten in both the Belmont and Travers. He could get 3rd.
Christina, you give much of a shot to Max Player?
He's kind of the wise guy horse for me this year. I keep hearing a lot of buzz about him. I don't think so. I don't think he gets that much better.
All right. Enforceable looked great earlier in the year, and kind of there was a long break between races. Came back in the Bluegrass, ran 4th. Christina, do you give Enforceable much of a chance?
Physically, he looks really good this week, and he's putting a lot into his gallops. I think he's going to outrun his odds.
Okay, Ellis, Enforceable.
He's a half to New Year's Day in Mohamed. I liked him a lot in the Breeders' Cup Breeders' Futurity last fall. Of course, Tappa can get horses to run this far. Cupid, Tonalist, Tacitus, but he's just a deep closer that gets 4th or 5th.
All right. What would you have said if I would have told you that the Breeders' Cup juvenile champion and 2-year-old champion would be 50 to 1 in the Kentucky Derby? Christina, Storm the Court. What do you think?
He's just the same horse. He's a good horse, but he's the same horse that we saw at 2 years old. He hasn't made that next step for me.
Ellis?
Need to put blinkers back on. He's not as fast without blinkers.
Okay, no love there for Storm the Court. Another 50 to 1 shot in the morning line. The 5-horse Major Fed coming off a 2nd place finish in the Indiana Derby. Christina?
Nay, he's just not fast enough. He needs to get a lot better if he's going to keep up with this group.
Ellis?
Nay, the Indiana Derby was a very low-rated race. No knock, but he's a grade 3 horse right now.
All right, well, here's a little bit of a wild card that we haven't spoken much about. The 6-horse, King Guillermo, all Venezuelan connections, legendary trainer Juan Carlos Avila. We've also got a legendary baseball player, Victor Martinez is the owner. And then you've got a Sammy Camacho, a Venezuelan jockey as well, making his first Derby start. Like, this horse hasn't really done much wrong, but he's only run twice this year. I don't know what to make of him. Christina, what do you think?
He's gritty. I really like this horse. I would have given him a much bigger chance if he had a recent race. I just think the layoff is too much to ask for him.
Hey, Ellis?
The pros and cons, a Nyquist could run. Uncle Mo, same sire. I do agree with Christina. 4 months off is tough. I'm using him in third in trifectas.
Okay. The 7-horse money moves, I think we've discussed in detail. I think we all like money moves a little bit. I will throw out one other thing that I got from Alicia Wentz-Hughes a little while ago. She told me she was speaking to Todd Fletcher. He will not be traveling to Kentucky for the Derby. I don't know if you want to read into any of that, but not traveling with his horse Money Moves. Interestingly, though, he sends Money Moves to the Derby and not Dr. Post, who seemed like a logical horse to enter. So there's some interpretation to be done there, but I think Ellis and Christina have laid out pretty good cases for the horse as well. The 8-horse, South Bend, I thought represented himself pretty well in the Travers, finished 4th, was obviously, I think, flattening out a bit late. But Christina, what do you think? Do you give him any shot here?
Yeah, I gave him a big shot in the Travers. I really liked him that day. I thought, the added distance was going to help him, but as you say, he did kind of flatten out. I'm hopeful that he's going to improve a little bit. I think he looks like a horse that's built for the distance, and he looks great, as he always has with Mott and then with Stanley Huff in the past, but he disappointed me in the Travers, so I don't think so.
All right, Ellis?
I'm definitely using him in the trifecta. Last year Country House didn't run that well coming into the Derby, and then got moved up via the DQ. The Ohio Derby was exceptionally good. He's going to be fighting for last early, along with horses like Major Fed and like Sol Volante and some of the others.
Yep. 2 times that horse has caught fast ground at Churchill. He's won, so something to consider. Way back, but he has 2 wins over the track. All right, the 9-horse, Mr. Big News. The big win for him came in the Oaklawn Stakes over a sloppy track. Caught a really fast pace up front and was able to capitalize. Do you give Mr. Big News any chance of closing in for a share, Christina?
He's outclassed for me. It's going to take a lot. He needs to step up in a big way, and I'm not sure he has it in him. There's other horses in here that I think take a bigger step forward.
Okay, you agree, Ellis?
Yeah, the horse he beat in the Oaklawn Stakes, Farmington Road, actually won a mile and 3/16 race at Colonial on the grass, so there was not much behind him.
All right. The 10-horse, 1,000 Words. Christina made a case for 1,000 Words earlier. I actually tend to agree. If you put a line through the Oaklawn Stakes over a sloppy track there, the horse obviously didn't love that race. You've got some consistency here, and I think even though I made the point earlier that you could, I wouldn't read too much in Honor AP's performance coming out of the Shared Belief. I thought 1,000 Words performance showed me something. Christina, realistically, where do you think 1,000 Words actually finishes in this race?
I think he could get a piece of it. I think realistically 4th, 5th maybe, but it's Bob Baffert, and he looks like he's improving right now. So these are connections that you can never count out.
All right, Ellis, a top 10 finish even? What are you going to give this guy?
I'm using him in second and third. I mean, he
Oh,
can stalk.
okay.
He can stalk. I think I used all 3 of the California horses: Honor AP, Authentic, and 1,000 Words underneath. 'Tis the Law. I prefer they don't get there. I prefer higher price horses like Money Moves, New York Traffic, and Sol Volante.
Okay, I misread your tone earlier. I read it more as you were tossing them. You're clearly not tossing them. You just don't think they could beat 'Tis the Law.
I give him very little chance to win the race,
Okay.
and only slightly more chance to come in second. I think he's good. Bad. He's tactically got a little bit of an issue here.
Okay. The 11-horse, another 50 to 1 shot, Necker Island. Christina.
claim to fame. Let's see if they can do it. Picked up for $100,000. I know Greg Harbett, the bloodstock agent, that was sort of integral in this, rooting for their team. They are making the change with the blinkers off, but he's another one that just looks to be outclassed to me. He would be a big surprise to me.
Yeah, I mentioned Alicia Winsfuse once already here. I'll mention her again. She wrote an incredible piece on Greg that you could find on americasbestracing.net. So check that piece out. Really, really cool story, and I'd love to see it just in terms of a really, again, it's a great storyline coming out of the Derby. It does appear to be up against it. Ellis, any chance this horse makes any noise?
No, I think he's one paced and he's slow.
Okay. Sol Volante, we know Ellis likes a little bit. Christina, what do you think about Sol Volante?
Ellis talked me in on those pedigree angles, so I'm just going to piggyback off his research. I could see it happening, or him hitting the board now with all of that stamina in the pedigree.
Ellis, what kind of odds would be fair odds for Sol Volante to hit the board?
Hit the board? Oh, I just
Mhm.
make win odds. I think to hit the board, he's probably about 10-1.
Okay. All right. So Sol Volante in the mix, obviously, for Ellis as well, if you're playing the Trides and Supers. Attachment rate, I made a case for. You won't hurt my feelings, Christina. Go ahead. Tell me what you think about attachment rate.
No, again, you've sold me. You sold me on the gallop out. I hope he's not going to be wide again. I'm a little bit worried about that. I'd love to see, a little ground saving if possible. He's going to need that versus the Bitches, the Laws, and the Honorary P's of this bunch. But certainly one that would be on my Superfecta ticket.
All right, Ellis, you can hurt my feelings. Go.
I think it can be third. The problem is
Okay.
this: that the mile and an eighth in the Bluegrass, he ran fifth the last eighth in the Ellis Park Derby, second. He's just not a mile and an eighth or a mile and a quarter horse. Hard spun, in spite of the fact that he ran really well when he was, I think, second in the Derby. He Sons and Daughters of Hard Spun are 1 for 32 thanks to Stats Race Lens, going 9.5 to 11 furlongs.
All right. Let's go to the 14 horse Winning Impression for Team West Point. Of course, part of the 2017 team that won the Derby with Always Dreaming. This one, I think, is really up against it. If I had to tell you a horse who I think would finish last, I'm probably now putting this horse. If he hits the board now, probably, because I'm saying this, I would think it's Winning Impression. He's had so many chances at this level. Just has not done anything. Christina, do you see any silver lining or any reason for hope with Winning Impression?
Yeah, he's outclassed and he is off form on top of it, which is kind of a double whammy. Dallas Stewart, he hits the board with those big prices. If there's a silver lining, it's Dallas Stewart.
Okay. Ellis, what do you think?
I will never be in the red on Dallas Stewart in the Derby and Preakness after having Commanding Curve and Tail of Verve, and I forget the other one. But I can't do this. I can't
do this.
I can't go there.
Do this.
I made the case for Commanding Curve. I made the case for Tail of Verve. I made the case for Golden. I forget his name to hit the board. I cannot make the case.
Golden Soul.
Yeah, I cannot make the case for Winning Impression being in the top 5. Sorry.
If you're a bridge too far for Ellis, then that's saying something. Ellis can't make a case for Winning Impression, and neither can any of us. So best of luck to Winning Impression. Again, people that I love there with the connections, but it's going to be tough. All right, the 15 horse we've talked about, I think, in detail here. Ellis kind of gives multiple variables on New York/NY traffic. I think he's a gutsy horse. I mean, again, you look at his Haskell. I mean, he just never stops fighting. The Matt Win, again, you look at, we talked about company horses are keeping. Authentic, that race before the Matt Win, Maxfield. I don't know. He's a gutsy horse. Christina, does he stick around for a piece?
Honestly, I think Taco Lopez is going to be so worried about the pace and other horses that he's probably going to kind of hurt himself by going too fast earlier, going after Authentic. I think his rider's going to work against him. I agree that he's a gritty horse, but I think part of what made his Haskell look good was that Authentic was coming back to him. I don't think it was as much of his fight as Authentic stopping.
Ellis, what do you think about the point Christina just made there that, given the pace, tactics, like that may in and of itself compromise New York traffic? What do you make of that? And what do you ultimately make of, where this horse could finish if everything goes his way?
Well, Blinkers have turned him into a different horse, but they haven't made him fast. And I think that considering he was a length and a half off and the Haskell a length and a half off in Louisiana Derby, I don't know where that puts him, but he's not going to be in the top three, in my opinion. So I'll take the alternate view with Christina and say Paco's going to get him 2 lengths back, whether that means he's second or fifth early. I think he will relax.
Okay. 16, Honore P. We've all touched on and I think have given varying degrees of endorsements to. I like Honore P. Honore P, in fact, is my top selection and who I'd bet if you were just making a win bet in the Kentucky Derby. Christina, since you've already told us how much you like Honore P, can you give us on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident you are in Honore P being able to upset Tiz the Law?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think I'm probably at an 8 out of 10.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I mean,
That's
he's
pretty high.
definitely he's the only horse that I could confidently tell you, like, yes, he can beat Tiz the Law. Everybody else, I feel like I'm reaching or making a case where, kind of trying to find angles. Honore P has all the tools. He has shown that to me, that he is as good of a horse or potentially as good of a horse as Tiz the Law. He doesn't have that resume yet, but I think he has the chance to keep building his own.
All right. Ellis, your final thoughts on Honore P. I know you kind of got lukewarm interest in him.
Yeah, I feel the same way about him. I feel about 1,000 words. I would use him in second as the second choice at 5 to 1. I hope he's not second.
All righty. Tiz the Law. We could probably skip this one. Thumbs up from all of us. Virtual thumbs up from all of us.
Yes, sir.
Virtual thumbs up.
All right, and the last horse in the field, Authentic, who I feel like we somehow have not really spoken much about, even though he's come up while referencing other horses. Do we give him any shot at all to maybe, just maybe, clear this field, get to the front, maybe open up a half a length to a length lead and settle down a little bit? Christina, do you see any scenario in which Authentic can do that?
I think he'll get to the lead. I think it's possible that he does, get out there even on a comfortable lead, depending on what a couple other riders do. I just don't think he can go this far. And to Ellis's point about the acceleration that Tiz the Law has, even if Authentic is in front, if Tiz the Law makes that move around the turn, he's going to swallow him up.
Yep. Ellis?
The question about the Haskell is whether he was getting tired or he's lazy when he makes the lead. Neither of those is good. And for a horse that's going to have to work to get by at least 4 or 5 horses and clear, even though there is a long run of the first turn, you just have to wonder what he's going to have left. So I'm going to use him again reluctantly in second. I'm hoping he's not second because 8 to 1 is going to be very underpaid here. He's the third choice on the morning line.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks. Let me get from each of you a top 4 in order, in preferential order, top 4 selections here in the Kentucky Derby. Christina?
16, Honore P. 17, Tiz the Law. Thinking back to what I sent in on my TVG email just a little while ago. 6, King Guillermo. 7, Money Moves.
Okay. Ellis?
Well, this will be identical to my Equibase race of the week, except without the odds. I'm going to give out my odds, which are win probability. So 17 Tiz the Law, 50%, 1 to 1. 15 New York Traffic, about 6 to 1, about 15%. 7 Money Moves, about 15%. And the 12 Sol Volante, about 12 to 1. New York Traffic and Money Moves at 16 translates to about 15% translates to about 6 to 1. And 12 Sol Volante, I make him about 10%, so about 11 to 1.
Okay. I'm going to go with Honore P on top, 16. I'm going to go with 13, Attachment Rate. I'm going to go with 17, Tiz the Law. And I'm going to go with number 7, Money Moves. So we're all on Money Moves, interestingly. The one horse who is not great at stakes tested, but obviously seems to be headed in the right direction. Those would be my top 4. So good stuff. I think we covered a whole lot. Hopefully, if you had any question about any particular horse, we've covered it. Before we wrap up, I do want to give just Christina and Ellis both a chance, because I know it's a busy week, and people may, who knows, that maybe they have some questions they still want to follow up about. They want to reach out to you on social media and connect. Christina, tell us where people can find you.
Oh, social media all the time. Checking Twitter, of course, for news and whatnot right now. And I will be on TVG all weekend from Del Mar, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we'll be kind of hashing this out with all my colleagues there. We will, of course, be going race by race, giving selections, tons of tickets and different sort of blogs and whatnot on our website. And yeah, reach out on Twitter. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might still have.
All right, Ellis, I've seen some of your stuff out already on America's Best Racing. As you mentioned, you've got content out everywhere as well. Where can people find your analysis, and then how can they connect with you directly in real time as well on Friday and Saturday?
So Twitter at UberCapper, of course, where I'm not going to give out any of the particular, would be fair to anybody, which different sites that I do. But if you go to at UberCapper on Twitter, you'll see the various blogs. The race of the week is on EchoBase.com and ABR, as you mentioned. That is the Derby. I did full card analysis for the 13 races on Friday and 14 for Saturday. That's actually something we sell for a small fee, so I'd let everybody know. It's at EchoBase.com and all the ADWs. That's not my choice. That's the way it is. And I will be tweeting a few things about it. I should be on a couple things. I believe I'm doing an interview for those that follow the Bluegrass, Kentucky Tonight with Mary Jo Perino. Tomorrow, Dick Gabriel, who's on radio and TV tonight. And I'll try and tweet those out links. Podcast with Triple Clowns on Thursday. And I think that about covers it.
All over the place. That's awesome, and I can only imagine your degree of exhaustion now. And when we check in with you on Sunday, hopefully you'll be resting up like we all will. Hopefully on Sunday, Christina. Hopefully you get Sunday off, right? Please tell me they're giving you Sunday off.
Oh no, I'm working Sunday and Monday, and then moving home from Del Mar, and then flying to Kentucky the next day.
Oh, I hope you have a good bottle.
We'll survive.
Good bottle of
We will
bourbon with
survive.
you. Okay. All right. As we wrap up, I want to remind everyone that Stats Race Lens is a tool that we've only just cracked the ice on here. Barely. We've broken through here and shown you just a small sample of what's available through Stats Race Lens. If you want to dig in yourself, Ellis is always available. The team at Equibase is always available. Now would be the time to do it through Saturday only. You can go on to Equibase, click on Stats Race Lens, and use promo code Derby146. Promo code Derby146. You'll get a quarterly subscription, so 3 months for just $146. That's more than 50% off the original price. Go right now, Derby146, and get yourself a Stats Race Lens subscription. And again, feel free if you have any questions to follow up with any of us. I'm Dan Tordjman at @AnonymousMan on Twitter. Always happy to engage and interact with everyone. And for now, we wish everyone a ton of luck this weekend. Happy Oaks and Derby.